Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to brew your tea Chaozhou style and giving you some of the context and thinking around this very historic style of brewing. You can skip directly to the step-by-step guide to brewing Chaozhou style, but I strongly advise you to learn the reason and rhyme behind Chaozhou style brewing to get the most out of it and to brew the best possible tea. Chaozhou is a beautiful city in Guangdong province in the south of China, and in the Qing dynasty around the beginning of the 18th century, while most of China was brewing tea in the big pot paocha style, which is essentially similar to what we now know as Western style with larger pots, lower leaf to water ratio and longer steeping times. In Chaozhou, a local style of brewing emerged which became known as Gong Fu style. Now, you have certainly heard me going on about Gong Fu style brewing, and throughout China you will hear people talk about Gong Fu tea, but nowadays this term can be sort of loosely applied to quite different styles of tea preparation. Gong Fu basically means any practice which incorporates skill and discipline, and so it has been adopted to describe brewing of fine teas when you pay care and attention to maximize the experience of the tea. But this Chaozhou method of brewing is the original Gong Fu style, invented in the 1700s in South China before spreading to neighboring Fujian and its prefecture at the time, Taiwan. In the 1990s, the term Gong Fu brewing was reinvigorated during a renaissance of Chinese tea culture at that time, and began to be used to describe any brewing method which used smaller teaware and shorter infusion times, and has since been used as a way of describing Chinese tea brewing methods in general. But let's get back to the origins of Gong Fu style brewing and dive deeper into Chaozhou Gong Fu. It's important to note from the outset that this style of brewing was never intended to be ceremonial, but instead is a simple, minimal and social way of brewing with quite an informal appeal. And yet, like all things in tea, the simplicity of the practice gives space for an incredible amount of complexity that we will be looking into today. The Chaozhou style of brewing was born out of the environment of South China. And if you are ever fortunate enough to visit South China, you will notice a lot of practice of Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts, as well as a lot more focus on like local rites, rituals, and history in Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. And so Gong Fu tea comes from a culture rich in symbolism, learning, and self-cultivation. I think that while Chaozhou style brewing may seem informal and everyday in comparison to maybe more elaborate Gong Fu setups or ceremonial styles, it is important to realize that the Chaozhou tea brewing and drinking is inspired by a cultural focus and importance on harmony, social cohesion, self-cultivation, skill, and symbolism. So what prompted the advent of Chaozhou style brewing? Well, there are two main factors which are often talked about. The first was the advent of a new tea type during this time, oolong tea. And as you may or may not know, oolong tea requires a great amount of skill and work to produce, going through many more processes than any other tea type. The result is a tea which is more crafted than other tea types. That's not to say it's better or worse, but more crafted. And the aim of oolong tea, or the producers, is to create a very potent tea which carefully balances, on one hand, aroma and initial like fleeting taste, and on the other hand, flavor, body, texture, finish, and body sensation. So a brewing method had to be devised to continue this aim of the producers to brew teas which are brimming with aromatics and like rising, lifting transients, while producing teas which are rich in body, flavor, and finish. The second factor, which is often talked about relating to the birth of Chaozhou style brewing, relates to the relative wealth of the people in South China during the Qing dynasty. This was a poorer area of China, and so a brewing method was developed motivated around frugality and skill. How could you maximize the enjoyment of coarser grades of tea and gram for gram make the best brews out of the teas in your stash? So this Chaozhou style of brewing was developed, and you will see that this style is used in literally every shop and household in Chaozhou, so much so that it almost appears utilitarian and everyday, yet scratch beneath the surface and you will see that it is a world of skill, learning and artistry. So, what are the fundamentals of Chaozhou style brewing? Well, first of all, it's minimal teaware. You essentially need a pot or gaiwan, cups and a waste bowl. There is no need for a gong bei because we are pouring directly into the serving cups. You can put the pot or gaiwan and the cups directly on a towel or on a tray or on a large flat bowl and just have another bowl on the side which you're using to pour away your rinse. In this case, we've got our Gong Fu vessel to combine the tray with the rinse bowl into one unit to make things even more minimal. You want to be brewing in very small teaware to be faithful to the Chaozhou frugality, but also to get the right balance of taste and aroma, which we'll talk about shortly. We recommend teaware between sort of 50 ml to 80 ml capacity. It is very important that you get the right size cups, which will accommodate all of the liquor in your pot or gaiwan. You don't want any liquor remaining in the gaiwan, as this will make the next infusion very bitter, and you don't want to have to waste tea by pouring it away in the rinse bowl. That's precious, precious tea. So you want to be making sure that when you empty your pot or gaiwan into the cups, you are putting the right amount of tea in the cups, sort of around 3/4 full. If it's too little, then it looks stingy. If it's too much, then it's very awkward and cumbersome for your guests to pick up overfilled cups. The number of cups is traditionally 3, no matter if you're brewing solo or for 2 people. This is supposedly because the 3 cups mimic the character pin, which is used in the verb to savor flavor, to savor taste. Honestly, I like the balance of 3 cups, but if I'm brewing by myself, then I tend to use one larger cup and just pour directly into that. It's less enjoyable because the larger cup means that the tea stays hotter for longer, and it's nice to taste at like temperature, which is a little bit lower, but it just makes for a more simple setup. If you have more than 3 people, then I would recommend keeping the same size cups, but just increasing your pot or gaiwan to like between 80 and 120 ml. The second key factor in Chaozhou is the type of tea, and I really recommend that when you dive into Chaozhou style brewing, you start brewing with strip oolongs like dancong or yencha, because this is the type of tea that this brewing style was originally devised for. Of course, you can experiment with other teas afterwards. The third characteristic of Chaozhou style is strength. The goal of Chaozhou style brewing is to make super rich and strong shots of tea. When you first try Chaozhou style brewed tea, it may be too strong and bitter for you, and you can certainly adapt the parameters to your taste. However, as you become accustomed to this stronger, more physical tea, I think that you will really appreciate the rich, long finish and rhyme or yun of the tea, and you will find yourself preferring this profile. So please persist and push the boundaries a little. We achieve this extra strength by using very hot water, boiling point, and a very high leaf to water ratio, something in the region of about 7 to 9 grams per 100 ml. So usually we recommend for this type of tea around 5 grams per 100 ml pot or gaiwan, but for these strip oolongs and Chaozhou style brewing, we're adding like about 40 to 80% more leaf. Here I have 4 grams of tea, which is going to be going into my 50 ml gaiwan, you can see here. And I've also got 5 grams of tea here for my Nafu Chaozhou clay teapot. So I'm going to be showing you brewing in both of these vessels. So if you don't want to weigh the leaf, you can sort of look at it visually, and you want to achieve around 70 to 80% visually in terms of capacity. So you can see this is sort of filled up 70 to 80%. But bear in mind that there is a lot of air in between these leaves because it's a strip oolong. So if you're using like ball rolled oolongs or smaller leaf tea or broken up cakes, then it would be visually much lower in volume. So let's look at this gaiwan. It is busting out with leaves. So much so that when these leaves hydrate, they are not going to be able to fully open in this size vessel. Why is this a good thing? Haven't you always heard that giving leaves lots of space for brewing and for the leaves to open is important to make good tea? Well, this is one of the key aspects of Chaozhou style brewing, overstuffing the pot, and it makes it especially suited for brewing strip oolongs. Remember before I said that the joy of oolongs was to achieve a rich balance between, on the one hand, aroma and transience, and on the other hand, finish and texture? Well, it is broadly true that the very powerful aromatics are on the surface of the leaves in the form of juices which have dried on the leaf during the rolling phase of the production, and that the texture, aftertaste, and bitterness and astringency of the brew are more dependent on dissolving and extracting the compounds from inside the leaf. So by intentionally not leaving enough space in the pot for the leaves to fully expand, we are controlling the rate of extraction of the inner leaf compounds, and therefore we can manipulate the level of bitterness, astringency, body, and aftertaste to be in balance with a very rich aroma. So, by having a very high leaf to water ratio with very short brewing times, we can maximize the aromatics of the oolong coming from the dried juices on the outside of the leaf, and we can control the texture, astringency, and yun or rime to be in harmony with these aromatics. But what about those early infusions? They're going to have the most amount of aroma, since this is easily extracted from the surface of the leaves, but the least amount of texture and aftertaste, as it does take some time for the water to penetrate and enter the leaves. This is why you often hear that with oolong teas, the best infusions around infusion 3 or 4, because at this point, a good balance has been reached as the inner leaf material is starting to be extracted in balance with the aromatics. Now, I don't know about you, but I would prefer to get that delicious balance from brew number 1 as opposed to brew number 3. And the Chaozhou style has got you covered with a really nifty trick of breaking some leaves. I've done a video about this before, but I'll repeat it in this video. So what you're trying to do is create what's called a tea gall, so a tea ball of broken leaves. So if you crush some of the leaves in your pot or gaiwan from the very first infusion, these broken leaves will extract the inner leaf compounds very readily because we've broken the outer membranes and there's more surface area for extraction. So infusion number 1 will have lots of aroma coming from the dried leaf juice on the outside of the leaf, and the broken leaf will be doing the work to provide all of that aftertaste, body, and texture. And by the time you reach infusion number 3 or 4, the whole leaves in your gaiwan or pot will be providing the bulk of this inner leaf compound to contribute to texture, body, and finish, albeit in a controlled way, since we are restricting the ability for the leaves to swell fully. And the broken leaves, they'll have done their work, essentially. They'll be providing very little. This method allows you to get a better balanced tea from infusion 1 and essentially extends the sweet spot of the tea through more infusions. As an added benefit, it means that the steeping times can be kept very short, and that means that you can preserve the aromatics, and it means that you can get more infusions out of your tea. Frugal and clever, huh? I told you that there was a lot more complexity in this seemingly simple brewing style. Right. Now that you know a lot more about the history and theory of Chaozhou brewing, let's show you step by step how it's done. Right, to recap, let's just disassemble this a little bit. In order for you to have a Chaozhou style setup, you basically need to have either a towel or a tray or a flat bowl, which you're going to put your brewing vessel and your cups, and a rinse bowl on the side, or in this case, you can use the Gong Fu vessel. There are other similar products out there that allow you to have the tray on top of the Gong Fu bowl, the rinse bowl. I've also got some tools here, not absolutely essential. You can do away with all of this and just have a towel, the gaiwan, pot, and cups, and a bowl, or the Gong Fu vessel, or a similar piece of teaware, and a towel, preferably just to soak up any spills. And what I have here are 3 small cups. This here, this small Gaiwan and cups we sell as a set. So this is our sort of Chaozhou style brewing setup that we have. But I've also got a Master Wu Nafu pot here. Love this pot. Again, the size on it, I think it's about 70 ml. And so that's perfect for Chaozhou style brewing. Okay, so one step at a time. I don't want to miss out any steps here. I've got 4 grams of leaf for this Gaiwan here, and I've got about 5 grams of leaf for this slightly larger capacity. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do, make sure you've got boiling hot water. So if I rush through this a little bit, then don't copy me. Make sure you always bring your water to temperature, and you're going to heat up your TEAWARE. So in this case, we're heating up the Gaiwan, and I'd pour the water into the cups, but you can also just let everything get warmed up. I'm also going to warm up my Nafu pot here just by putting some boiling water in there. So we want everything warmed up. This is going to contribute to more even brewing, and it's also going to mean that you're going to get more of a impactful aroma when leaves hit the hot vessel. Okay, so I'm going to use these tweezers just to empty out this water. So these thin porcelain, so they're going to get warm very easily. I'm going to give the elephant a little dousing because he's here. And you can use that to count infusions. Okay, so lid off. And, ooh, did I mix these up? That looks like the lesser amount of leaf here. So this is 4 grams going in. Right, now the crushing method. If you don't know what I mean because you skipped, go back a little bit and you'll understand why I'm doing this. I'm just gonna take my finger and I'm gonna go right into the middle of the Gaiwan here and I'm gonna crush. Believe me, I know that this is a bizarre thing for a lot of people who are sort of relatively new to this style of brewing, but this is a very common practice. Let me ASMR this a bit, just so you get the full pleasure and horror of hearing leaves being cracked. So I'm just cracking leaves, crushing maybe 10%, 15% in the middle, and I'm not moving it around, okay? Lid goes on. So I'm gonna allow that to just warm up the leaves and give me some aroma. In the meantime, I'm gonna pour this Nafu out. So obviously you were doing one or the other. So I'm a little bit cramped here, but you would do one or the other. Now with a pot, if you're brewing with a pot, then what I recommend is you take, 10% or so of your leaf, something like this. And let me just move this out of the way so you can see. And I'm going to crush this here. I should say I'm drinking Basien 8 Immortals, Danchong. Okay, you can see. I'm not being frightened to crush it because this is all about helping those first infusions to have good balance of texture. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, very important, towards the back of the pot. So I'm going to put it in and I'm going to move this all to the back. And I'm going to tidy up a bit here. Okay, that was a bit messier than I thought. So do that separate from your vessel. So I've cleaned up the vessel top. Okay, so I'm just moving those broken leaves, and you can use your Gong Fu stem if you'd like, just to move them to the back of the pot. And then I'm going to put the rest of these leaves into the front of the pot. I'm just going to use my hand as a little barrier. So this means that the broken tea leaves are at the back, which means that when I am brewing or I'm pouring off the brew, the leaves, these larger whole leaves act like a filter to stop the broken leaves from entering your brew as much as possible. Okay, let's put this to the side. So now I've got a hot pot or a hot Gaiwan. I'm going to put that one to the side. I'm going to go back to the Gaiwan now. Again, that tea dust went everywhere, so I'm just going to clean up. So yeah, do your crushing separate if you want for a very sort of neat setup. Okay. And now you would smell the leaf, so nose, dry leaf. Start with the lid. Oh, much more caramelized than I remember. But then it is the dry leaf. I'm not going to talk about the tasting notes. I've done a video about 8 Immortals. I'll put a link in the description below. But this is where you really get to enjoy the delights of the aromatics of this tea, and why this Chaozhou style brewing method was what prompted or motivated it being devised was in large part due to the bursting aromatics of this tea and wanting to capture those aromatics in the cup whilst making a tea which is strong in terms of texture and aftertaste. Oh, incredibly complex. Cherries and vinyls and all sorts of baked goodness. Okay, so now we're going to rinse the tea. So if you are pouring, so I'm just going to crank up the temperature. If you are pouring in the pot, then you will want to make sure that you pour the water towards the front of the pot so that you're not pouring directly on the gall, which is that ball of broken up leaves. And in the case of the Gaiwan, you're going to want to do rim brewing, so pouring around. So again, you're not pouring directly in, you're pouring around. This is what I would recommend for you. So that way the water will of course hit the gall, but it's not being broken by a direct stream of water. Okay, so now we're going to do our rinse, and this is all about quick brewing, okay? So I tend to use my left hand just so that I'm ready with the right hand to do the brew, and it teaches me balance with my other hand. So in and then out. Now you're pouring in a motion to try to even out, get the same amount of liquor in the cup. Now you can see here that there's a fair amount of broken leaf, and that's really the point here, is you want that rinse to get rid of any that is not going to get trapped within those leaves. So we're going to pour these out, and hopefully you're going to see less. Now, of course, if you had left the leaves completely whole, then you wouldn't see any of these, and you may prefer that aesthetically. But in terms of the taste experience, I do like, for most of my danshongs and yenchas, I like to do this broken leaf method. So as I said, if you were brewing with the pot, then pour at the front, and again, you're using the leaves as a filter. So let's have a sniff. Yellow cherries, strong in that vinyl, fruity varnish note, and just bursting with incredible bright, high, fruity and invigorating aromatics. Let's just do the Chaozhou version as well. I mean, sorry, the pot version as well. So I'm pouring towards the front of the pot and then pouring immediately out. You can see that the Chaozhou pot also is going to release some of the broken leaf, and that's hopefully going to be less with next infusions. And that's one of the purposes of rinsing your tea. Again, you can smell. Incredible. Beautiful. All right, so now we're ready for our first infusion. Of course, take your time, you know, smell the tea, delight in all of the complexity of the aromatics. We're still hot, but I'm just going to make sure it's really, really piping hot. And again, very short infusions here. We want to just basically do it in, put the kettle down and out. And then when we're pouring out into the cups, you're ideally looking for an even brew, so the same amount of liquor ending up in the cups, which means you want to put the cups pretty close together and, you know, pour so that you're starting one way and then sort of just factoring in that the last pours are going to be richer. So you're going to start more diluted here, and then it's going to be a bit stronger, and then it's going to be more concentrated. And then once you come back to here, you're going to have, you're going to top up with more concentrated tea. Now, a lot of people say, well, you've got to be even. Sometimes if I know that somebody likes a lighter brew, you can customize. So you can say, well, I'm going to pour lighter in your cup and then stronger in these two cups. So again, this is not, you don't have to make it even. You can customize according to your guest taste. The most important thing is getting all of the liquor out, all of the water out, so that you don't have anything left behind. Okay, so again, I'm pouring around. Down, and you can see pretty much immediately out. And take your time and get every last drop out here. You might want to employ the roll-up method, because there's always a few. Oh no, no drops out there. Okay, and then I would advise taking the lid off. Now, you can see again, your choice. If you want to have it perfectly clear, then you could go through a filter, but that's not the Chaozhou style. And you know, there is going to be some of this broken leaf in here if you are using the crushed leaf method. But I prefer it because I like to have that texture from infusion number 1. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, bursting with aromatics and a great aftertaste, a great texture. And I know that if I just brewed this whole leaf without the crushing of the leaves, that it would be very aromatic but a little bit light. Now, this is like infusion number 2 or 3, when you're comparing it with brewing it with just whole leaf. And oftentimes you'll just sort of pour away that last bit. Oftentimes you'll see in China a very sort of the way that they pour it away is very theatrical. They sort of like, they pour it away and then the cup goes down. And oftentimes, well, most of the time, people will serve themselves from here and they'll put their cup back. You can, of course, use, you know, the Gong Fu stems to serve people if you wanted to do it a little bit more politely. But, you know, this is a social way of drinking. And so, you know, most of the time in Chaozhou, you see people just grabbing and putting back onto the teaware, be it a tray. Most of the time they will have something like this in front of them, but you can, of course, just pick up and serve in this way. Incredible, this broken leaf method. I highly recommend you A/B it and see what you think. Now, if we were going to be brewing with the pot, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. You're pouring to the front of the pot again, so that you're not breaking that gall in the back, and you're pouring immediately over. Now, you can also, oftentimes after you put the lid on, pour some water over the top. I'll quickly show you how that's done, just to make sure that the teaware is always staying very, very hot. One of the things about Chaozhou style brewing, you'll see the kettle of water is always going. It's just steaming. Everything about the Chaozhou style of brewing in this hot weather is all, you know, it's all like steamy and hot, and everything always stays warm. And I don't know, that somehow that suits the weather bizarrely, because it's sort of, everything makes you sweat and that cools you down, and it's just a very satisfying way to drink tea. Very, very different from sort of more sort of colder regions where you're drinking green teas with cooler temperature, and it's a little bit more sort of, how can I say it? Calmer, potentially, or a little bit more sort of refined. This is all sort of about the steamy, hot streets of Chaozhou. Okay, so brewing in the Master Wu Nafu pot, I'm pouring into the front, lid on, pour over, down, and then pretty much immediately I'm pouring out, trying to get an even brew. That's a bit better. Again, take your time, get every last drop. You don't want little pockets of water in the teapot that are going to be brewing with those broken leaves, especially. And the liquor will clear up as more of the broken leaves sort of leave the pot. And as I said, by sort of infusion 3 or 4, they've done all of their work, and it's the whole leaves that are really contributing to the flavor. Let's have a taste of the Nafu. Stronger, partly because of the fact, oh wow, partly because of the fact that it's clay, holds the heat more, that I poured the water, that it was a bit longer in terms of the brew, especially because the pour is shorter, it takes longer, and therefore there was more brewing time. Wow, really, really delicious. This is more of that Chaozhou style. Maybe I should have left the Gai one a little bit longer. So what I'm getting is this quite aggressive, like, it feels like it's gonna be too much, but then it's controlled, and the aromatics that rise up into my nose are balancing it out really, really beautifully. You're getting that brightness, the floral, the fruity, with that bitter and the texture and the astringency and the juiciness, and that rising yun, that vaporous rising sensation from the mouth. That is classic Chaozhou style brewing of a classic Chaozhou tea. And now you would just roll through the infusions as you normally would. You would just keep going. This was infusion number 1, and infusion number 1 is impeccable. So that broken leaf really, really worked. And then just keep going. And again, I would still use very, very short brewing times to preserve the aromatics. In theory, by the time the broken leaves have stopped sort of working to provide texture, the whole leaves will have opened up sufficiently so that they will be doing the work. And because you are restricting the room for these leaves to fully open, you're going to control the astringency, you know, just by the nature of the size and shape of the pot. And keep brewing at flash infusions, and just, you know, obviously work on instinct, and you're going to increase it over time. So that's how you do Chaozhou style brewing. I hope that this was informative. I hope that you dive in. It is at first glance a sort of very informal, casual way of brewing with minimal setup, but once you dive deeper and really explore this way of brewing, you are going to brew the most immaculate oolong teas. I can promise you that, and it has so much skill and artistry to learn. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.